talking about Nezarec, our old friend Nezarec. That was obviously a character we saw, which is very impressive. We saw in 2017, Nezarec Sin, the Warlock helmet. And then it's funny, I didn't even I'm not sure if anyone else connected the dots, but the whole his helmet looking exactly the same as the Scions, then obviously the connection with the Scions. I feel like I never even, because they redesigned the Scion helmet between Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, but I feel like I never saw anyone connect the dots that the Scion's helmet is actually the same as Nezarec's, and then obviously in this lore we find out that Nezarec used to be some kind of ruler in the old, before the Scions were slaves of the Cabal. But the connection there was very interesting.
Yeah, I imagine I've seen one or two people say it over the years, and I've just brushed it away, and now 6 years later, their chickens have come back to roost, which is great fun for them. And I'll honestly sit here and say it, the way they've written Nezarec is excellent. Yeah. Because they, in most instances, we expect to learn everything about a raid boss and to truly understand them and who they are and where they come from. That's very much the way it was done with Rulk. This is not a Rulk situation. Nezarec is very much a being, an entity. Where Rulk was a character that you could dissect motive-wise, Nezarec is more of just this kind of presence, this force.
Nightmare.
Even after Nezarec dies, they sit there and say that they will haunt our quietest moments when everything is at peace. They will haunt our dreams. And the fact that Nezarec says this is not an empty threat. It's something that he's done before. He has been there when the Scions have come along and, been overwhelmed and their old culture was overthrown for the quote-unquote god thoughts. They literally sacrificed people to Nezarec, There are moments at which Nezarec has interacted with guardians and with other individuals throughout Sol, and those moments are pretty clear and definitively showing the power of Nezarec and how it's really almost completely unavoidable. And you got to remember, some of these moments, particularly when he's interacting with guardians and with individuals in Sol, he's dead when all this is happening. Savathun's already killed him once at this point. So Nezarec can't die, is the really clear conclusion of all this.
That was going to be my question. Is he dead when he says that he's going to haunt you? Is that more metaphorical, as in he's just kind of in your nightmares? Do you think he'll come back, or do you think it's just kind of, as you said, the default of Nezarec, he just is this nightmarish being that always haunts people?
I think that it's got to the point where Nezarec is so psionically powerful that as long as there's pain and as long as there are nightmares out there, Nezarec is going to be able to feed. And that's, in a certain way, Bungie has pulled on some really scary concepts there and has created a villain that could very well be recurring. Imagine if we do eventually beat the Witness and in another 5 years' time, when it's whatever's going on with Destiny, we discover that Nezarec is actively creating something else where he's able to just continuously feed on pain, and it's this completely untouchable pocket universe. And it's I'm going to grow in power, and in however many years, I'm going to be back, and then I will get my revenge. Can you imagine that? There is potential here for this villain. I mean,
keeps returning.
And also, this time he will have an even better dad bod.
Maybe you can get a better shape, a better final shape this time.
This time I have a grill.
maybe you can shed some light on this. Where does Nezarec stand with the Witness and us? 'Cause I don't really understand. Is Nezarec our enemy? Why does he kind of hate us? And is he? I can understand he had his thing with Savathun, but I don't really understand why he's our enemy and where he stands with the Witness still, because the Witness had a shrine to him on his pyramid, and that's why he got resurrected accidentally by the Traveler, who was awful aim and somehow managed to resurrect some kind of demon. Good job, Traveler. But what's the relationship there?
So this is part of what I was talking about a little earlier in the cast, where it shows how messy the allegiances to the Witness have really gotten. Nezarec is following the Witness and is a loyal servant of the Witness. And it's really weird to say that, because the original indications in the lore seemed to point to this idea that he opposed sword logic and that, he just wanted as much life to be out there as possible so that he could experience all of its suffering. And that's very contrary to what the Hive's version of the sword logic was, and that was the only thing we knew about anything close to the final shape. So for a very long time, it was a very easy assumption to make, but it's actually been clarified a lot in the lore that the Witness has allowed these other disciples like Nezarec to exist alongside the Hive and to exist alongside Rorke with their opposing opinions of what the final shape is and what's really going on with it, and to just sort of like exist in this narrative where it can be any of these things at any moment for any one of the disciples, because the Witness doesn't really seem to care, or at very least the Witness knows what it truly is and doesn't have the time to explain it. All of that is to say that Nezarec is serving the Witness, but he's an opportunist. In this sense, he is this parasite that feeds on terror. And so when the Witness was forced out of our system, he persisted and still exists, and any being that was inflicting cruelty, such as Earth's warlords, aka Guardians before they actually were good and had just risen with this incredible power and the ability to resurrect after death, he took a great deal of interest in all the suffering that they doled out to people. So yeah, it's this thing of like their relationship to us is very opportunistic. And even in the moments of Lightfall, it's clear that the reason they were haunting the citizens of Neomuna is because they were trying to get our attention. They wanted us to come along so that we would actually accelerate things within the Witness's pyramid ship and would actually free them. They view us as a tool, but they're also a force that is way beyond us. So it's a very roundabout way of saying like, hey, they're still faithful to the Witness, but the suffering that Nezarec is seeking consistently is still around even without the Witness in the picture. Us Guardians are a great mechanism of delivering that. And, he says as much during the raid. He's very happy to sit there and sort of congratulate us about the way that the warlords, and it's pretty visceral, the way the warlords made people scream, this is some really screwed up shit.
Yeah, I like the back and forth. I like the idea of the raid boss like talking to you throughout the raid. That seems to be a thing since Rorke and with Nezarec. Just this like the fact you have this final boss like taunting you and like having a bit of dialogue as the raid progresses, and then you actually reach this moment. I thought that was a good touch. But